The noble High Elves, or Azur as they call themselves, are among the most ancient and powerful of all races. From their mist-shrouded home continent of Ulthuan, they defend the world from encroaching evils that threaten it. The High Elves are an extremely defensive faction, and Ulthuan's lands are no exception. In this video, we'll take a look at the basics of the High Elves campaign and how they perform in battle. There are two routes to victory as the High Elves. You can either complete all of the rituals and look to take control of the Great Vortex, or eliminate certain enemy factions and maintain control of 50 provinces. If you decide protecting the Great Vortex is of the utmost importance, then you'll need to complete a series of rituals in order to control it, while at the same time stopping enemy factions from doing the same thing. If you'd rather dominate the lands, there are plenty of settlements and suitable climates for you to inhabit. However, there are many in uninhabitable climates for the High Elves, which will give you many penalties should you decide to settle there. So, how do the High Elves begin their rituals? Well, they will need way fragments. These can be produced by buildings, given as mission rewards, and found when treasure hunting. Once you've acquired enough of them, you'll be able to begin a ritual. It'll take many turns to complete and factions will be trying to stop you along the way, but you repeat this process until you reach the final ritual. There are also special settlements out in the world called ritual resource sites. These can be identified by the symbol next to their settlement name. They'll allow you to construct a building that will produce wave fragments per turn. Very useful for helping you reach your ritual faster, so keep an eye out for them and look to take control of them. If a rival faction begins a ritual, you may want to try and stop them. This can be done in the form of interventions. You'll spend money to send an AI controlled army to attack one of the settlements of the ritual. The more money you spend, the stronger the army will be, increasing the chance of delaying the enemy's ritual. The High Elves also have access to their own powerful rights. These grant strong bonuses and unique abilities, such as increasing your influence per turn and buffing your public order. Very useful for managing your people and controlling relationships in the land. Most rights cost money, only last so many turns, and have a cooldown as well. So don't be too hasty with them and make sure you can get the most out of your chosen right. The High Elves' technology trees are fairly self-explanatory. There are military, trade, and cultural advancement trees. The military trees of course will mainly serve to make your army stronger, while the trade and cultural will help improve your economy. Some research is locked until you've constructed the appropriate buildings. It's worth browsing over all the tooltips to see where your research is heading and what you think may be most useful for your playstyle. The High Elves have a unique resource at their disposal in the form of influence. It's gained through missions, quests and rights amongst other things, and will allow you to acquire some of the strongest lords in the land, and lets you be the one to pull the powerful political strings of your allies and enemies. When you should need to find yourself a new lord or hero, you'll notice that some have an influence cost and some don't. You'll notice that some characters cost more influence than others. This is because they start with better traits. You can get characters that cost no influence, but chances are they'll have a negative trait attached to them. So if you're planning on recruiting a new lord, you may want to save a bit of influence first. It can also be spent at the intrigue of the court to manipulate faction relations. So at the moment, I'm at war with Cavalry and I'd like some help with that. One of my allies, Illyrian, isn't too friendly with them either as their relationship is deteriorating. So I'm going to spend some of my influence to decrease their relations even further by quite a considerable amount, and this will hopefully lead them to war, giving Cavalry another enemy other than me to worry about. So if you need to find an ally or create some mutual enemies, influence is a very powerful resource. And if that wasn't devious enough for you, the High Elves also have trade espionage. So you can see I have a trade agreement with Illyrian here, which is going to allow me to be able to see all their territory. A great tactical advantage to be able to see any threats coming your way, or any opportunities from, say, unattended settlements. So look for those trade agreements if you want a better vision of the land. So what buildings do we need for a strong High Elf army? Well, the militia camp is a good place to start as it gives you access to your spearmen and archers, core units of the High Elves army. Or if you'd rather take advantage of the High Elves' magical prowess, the archive can train your wizards up. If it's infantry killing power you're after though, the Grove may be a better call as it gives you access to the White Lions of Trace. However, all these units pale in comparison if you want the true strength of the High Elf army, which can not only be found in the Dragon's Lair, but also the Temple of Asoyon, giving you access to all your dragons and phoenixes, the most majestic and powerful units on the High Elf roster. Out on the battlefield, the High Elves are quite the defensive faction. You'll find High Elf units to be superior in their quality, but with quite hefty price tags. Formation and order must be maintained for the High Elves to allow all parts of the army to work together most effectively. One of the first things to know about the High Elf units though is their martial prowess ability. This will boost their melee attack and melee defense, but only when their health is above 50%. The significant melee defense boost especially helps the High Elves stay in the fight that little bit longer, further adding to their defensive capabilities, although this will mean that wounded High Elf armies will be considerably less effective. Spearmen are a great choice for a High Elf front line as they're inexpensive and great at holding. They may not get a ton of kills, but they'll be great for keeping the enemy in place while the rest of your army moves to do the damage. Said damage dealers could come in the form of Cavalry. Some of your high charge bonus units could hit the rear of the enemy front line with some good old hammer and anvil. The High Elves have some great cavalry at their disposal, giving them strong and agile flanking options. The High Elves also have strong missile units with some of the best range in the game. Use these to whittle down enemy frontline units to give your front line an easier time. And the longer your front line holds, the more time your archers will have to go to work. Once the front lines are engaged, they can target units on the flank or any routing units. Magic is of course another strength of the Asur, with fantastic arcane abilities in many different fields, from buffs and healing to your own troops to devastating attacks on the enemies. More effective ways to support different areas of your army when used correctly. Now, while the High Elves do have some very strong elite infantry, their true strength lies in their flying units. Phoenixes and dragons are some of the more deadly offensive units for the High Elves. They can play defensive roles too, and with their mobility and ease of getting around the battlefield can support different areas of your army, such as the Frostheart Phoenix, which can debuff nearby enemy troops, or the dragons with their flying breath attacks. Whichever one of these majestic beasts you choose, there's no doubt their mighty presence will be felt by your enemy. The biggest dangers to the High Elf army is their loss of the martial prowess ability and the potential to be overrun. Because High Elf units are very expensive, fielding large armies can be a problem. And if a small High Elf army comes up against a large enemy army, they may find themselves being quite easily outflanked without enough troops to hold back the enemy. So good use of terrain and tactics may be required. And that concludes this video on the basics of the High Elves. If you'd like to know more about the other factions in Total War Warhammer 2, check out the other how to play as faction videos. I hope you've enjoyed this, and thanks for watching.